Treason in South Africa is defined as any act aimed at overthrowing or undermining the authority of the state, particularly through violent means or by aiding foreign powers to destabilize or attack the country. According to South African law, treason involves actions such as plotting to alter the government or constitution, providing support to enemy forces during wartime, or engaging in activities that threaten national sovereignty and security. The recent visit of AfriForum to the USA has brought attention to their advocacy for minority rights and the portrayal of South Africa's political landscape, which some may view as contentious. However, unless their actions include overt acts of plotting against the government or assisting foreign interests with hostile intentions, such activities would not typically constitute treason under South African law.
Delegation from AfriForum and Solidarity has held surprise talks at the White House with officials from the Trump administration. The delegation was led by the Solidarity chairperson, Flip Byers, as well as the CEO, Dirk Herman, AfriForum CEO, Kali Kriel, as well as the head of the lobby group's international liaison, Jaco Kleinhans. The four men have urged the U.S. to punish President Cyril Ramaphosa and the ANC for what they call government's discriminatory racial legislation. But they've also appealed to the Trump administration not to revoke South Africa's trading privileges under the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, or AGOA. News from Africa's Washington correspondent, Simon Marks, says news of the delegation's visit came as a complete surprise.
This was a bolt from the blue. We had known that there were plans for AfriForum and its affiliated organisations to send a delegation here, but neither the White House nor the visiting South Africans provided any advance information about their presence in Washington, D.C., and we still do not know precisely who they met. It's clear they entered the White House on Tuesday from pictures of the four men on social media standing right outside the main guest entrance to the building on Pennsylvania Avenue, all of them wearing visitor passes needed to enter the building. In a statement, they called their encounter with Trump officials historic, and they expressed their thanks for the president's decision to, in their words, highlight the human rights violations against Afrikaners, the ANC's reckless policies and poor governance in South Africa. They say they presented Trump officials with a document called the Washington Memorandum. It calls on the United States government to intensify pressure on President Ramaphosa and other ANC leaders. But the delegation argues that pressure campaign should not include efforts to revoke South Africa's crucial trading privileges under AGOA, that some Republicans on Capitol Hill support suspending. The Expropriation Act, of course, was at the centre of conversations, and the document presented to Trump officials contains details of what the delegation called the wide scope of discriminatory racial legislation in South Africa. Dr. Dirk Herman of Solidarity insisted the current rupture in US-South Africa relations is not just a minor diplomatic understanding, but a diplomatic crisis that he says has been caused by the ANC. From the White House itself, there was no news of the delegation's impact on President Trump's determination to continue punishing South Africa. He has already received a letter from 4 Republicans on Capitol Hill urging him to consider suspending diplomatic relations between the two countries.
And AfriForum to meet his representatives.
Well, I do believe, I've heard that AfriForum and Solidarity have met representatives in the US government, and they're doing precisely what we said we as South Africans should not do. We should stop running to other countries. We should discuss our own problems here and find solutions. And that in many ways confirms our own sovereignty. It confirms our standing as a free and independent nation. A nation that can stand proud amongst many other nations and being able to say, we can solve our own problems. We may differ here, but we will find solutions to whatever problems we have. And we have the wherewithal to be able to do that. So I would say we stay here, we solve our problems here, and we embrace one another, and we build a nation. We will never be able to build a nation by just going to complain to other nations in the world. That's how we solve problems.
How do you respond to that?
Well, there are people who are saying that, something needs to be done to them and all that. And I would say that we need to be sending a clear message to them that as far as we are concerned, as proud South Africans, we prefer that we should all stay here and solve our problems. And already what they are doing has spawned divisions in our nation. And that is not a nation-building process of running around the world to try and have your problems solved. You are just sowing divisions. Because now a number of South Africans then start looking at others negatively. And I don't think that that is the right way to handle our problems.
Okay, last question.
I'm really shocked at AfriForum that they go around the world talking so badly about our country. And I think they're seeing the results of their work, and they must bear the consequences of that. The harm is going to come to the constituency they claim to represent should the threats of President Trump be realized and we excluded from exporting, particularly our agricultural goods from South Africa, our excellent product, which largely is exported by members and businesses coming through the Afrikaans-speaking community. So I really believe AfriForum has, kind of cut their nose to spite their face. Now, with respect to the way our country has responded, I believe Ambassador Rasool is doing a great job.
AfriForum wants to bring everything that is black and probably successful down. It's their agenda to prove the system is wrong in the hands of black people. But the Black Forum must say, we will defend our own, but not on the basis of incompetence and recklessness. We'll defend the best of the best in the system. So that Mbalula does not hide beyond incompetence in the name of blackness. And then begin to say that, no, I'm being victimized here because one day I want to become president. Because you should become president and want to be president out of your deeds. For one thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, we are about. Here in this country, we have defended things that we're not supposed to defend.
Indeed, we are apolitical, but when it comes to the complainant, we also don't discriminate whether a complainant belongs to a political party or not. So there are 4 dockets that have been opened by different people, maybe from different political parties, that concern some individuals that may have crossed the border to go and communicate some of the things that are perceived to be in the direction of high treason.
I don't think it's incorrect for us to say AfriForum.
No, I don't want to mention the names of organizations, but as you correctly say, there are some organizations that are suspected to be involved, but certain complainants have indicated that this and that organization seems to be the ones that are actually advocating something that appear to be high treason. We are investigating, is at the initial stage of the investigation. Those type of crimes, you need to be careful in the way in which you collect that evidence.
The police minister wants answers from AfriForum as soon as their delegation returns from the US. The minister wants evidence to AfriForum's claims that crime stats on farm murders are not accurate. The lobby group claims that 5 farmers were killed in the 3rd quarter of last year. But the minister has come out and said that's not true. He says there was only 1 death.
We treat firstly, we go to lengths investigating, collecting, analyzing information leading to the release of states. We do our best. And we know that we are benchmarking our stats using criteria that is acceptable in terms of standards. Now, we also, I must say, treat stats very, very seriously, because this has to do with lives of South Africans, which are of big value to their families and to government and to all the whole population of South Africa. And when then we get a response which says that we are disputing the results that South African Police Service has released, we need evidence. We need evidence to be put to us, and we'll welcome that with elaborations as to where it comes from and how, so that we are satisfied that it is correct information that might have missed us somehow. And we're saying that as soon as AfriForum lands in South Africa from America, we need this information from them.
This video goes to my South African patriotic citizen. My dear brother and sister, AfriForum right now in USA, AfriForum, if you dare to try to destroy our country, under my leadership, we will take the street and we're going to revolutionize this country. Nobody dare to sell our country to Trump. And talking, Trump has no right to interfere into our country internal matter. AfriForum, step down as NGO right now. Cancel AfriForum without any hesitation. Arrest Khalid Creel. Khalid Creel is a traitor. Enough is enough now. We are calling all the patriotic South African citizens. Prepare yourself for anything from now.
The CEO of AfriForum, Khalid Creel. Mr. Creel, before we have this conversation, I'd just like you to quickly just listen to what the Hawks had to say again, and I'd like your reaction to that.
There are 4 dockets that have been opened by different people, maybe from different political parties, that concern some individuals that may have crossed the border to go and communicate some of the things that are perceived to be in the direction of high treason.
All right, Mr. Creel, good afternoon to you. What's your reaction? Do you think they're talking about you?
Good afternoon to you, ma'am, and you're welcome to just call me Kali. Well, I think it's obvious he's speaking about us, but I must say from the start, I'm not having any sleepless nights because, of course, we know that these complaints are baseless. If anybody is disloyal to this country, then, of course, it is ANC leaders through their irresponsible policies. From our side, we are trying to save the country from a disaster with regard to disrespect for property rights. So we are confident to be able to go to court. Actually, court would give us an opportunity to state our case and show the world and show South Africa how disloyal the ANC leaders are. And then, of course, it would, yes.
One would then say, for example, just before we get into other issues, I'm listening to you say that you're prepared to go to court because you've got confidence in the courts. One would then ask that, could you not perhaps have gone this route to challenge the act before you decided to go across the borders?
Well, the fact is, we wrote to the president in April already last year to ask him not to sign this act and refer it back to Parliament. We also negotiated with a team mandated by the president with regard to specifically the Bella Act. And we were simply met with disdain. We were ignored. And when there was an agreement, the president simply denied mandating people to negotiate with us. So in that sense, we would have loved to find local solutions. But if the government is going to act like that, if the presidential spokesperson is saying he refuses, or the president refuses to speak to us, we will not take that lying down, and it is within our rights to make sure that we garner support to save South Africa.
So my question is, I'll get to the president in just a moment. My question is, if you are saying that you're prepared to go to court to defend yourself, should you find yourselves with a case like this to answer, and you've got confidence in the court, could you not go to court first to challenge the Expropriation Act before you decided to go beyond South Africa's borders to be able to cause alarm?
No, well, we will indeed go to court. We've said that we are going to court, and our legal team is already busy with that. But we have a two-pronged approach. Remember, this is not only with regard to the Expropriation Act. We are also here to complain with regard to the fact that there are people in our country singing "Kill the Boer." In that case, we did go to court, and the court did not give us any protection. We have a president and leaders that are not condemning this while we are seeing torches on farms. If we are not going to be able to pressurize the ANC leaders in South Africa, we will garner support elsewhere, and that is exactly what we will keep on doing. We will not be intimidated by these complaints. The fact is, if anybody is disloyal to the country, it's ANC leaders through corruption. We've seen the Zondo Commission. I've heard the Hawks say they will act without fear, favour, or prejudice. There are 94 ANC leaders that have been implicated in the Zondo Commission report, and it seems the Hawks is not acting without fear, favour, or prejudice against them. They are scot-free at the moment. So this is selective abuse of the criminal justice system in the country.
So you are in a country where you have been offered a place to stay. I know you've said that you're not looking to take up that offer, but if you feel like you're not being listened to in South Africa, one would ask, why not take up the US government's offer there?
Because I'm an Afrikaner, and I want to make sure that the next generation, so my grandchildren are also Afrikaners, and the only place we can do that is on the southern tip of Africa. We don't want to be assimilated within communities in another country. So that is why we are taking this seriously. And remember, we are fighting to divert Zimbabwean kind of situation in the country. So we are fighting in the interest of everybody in the country. What we've seen, the US has not reacted to us. The US, we've said to people, or people at the Congress said to us, they've been following a long time now, South Africa having an anti-American foreign policy, South African disrespecting property rights, and they're going to act against us.
How is South Africa's foreign policy anti-American when we've been non-aligned, and South Africa has also had that AGOA agreement with the US? So how then is South Africa having an anti-US foreign policy?
Well, we most definitely not non-aligned. We have sided in the world. We say we need to be non-aligned. Well, if Nomvula Mokonyane says openly she wants Santon Drive to be changed to Leila Khalid so that the American consulate should put her name on the letterhead, she's, of course, a person that planned terror against US citizens. How is that independent or not taking sides? When Gwede Mantashe says the US is spreading trouble in South Africa, how is that not being unaligned? If you're going to see the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Naledi Pandor, going to Iran, sitting there with the late President Raisi, how is that non-aligned? This government has taken sides. India is actually a good example for us. They can be part of BRICS and have a good relationship with the US because they put their people first. Our government is putting their own ideology and their own country first to the detriment of normal people in this country.
So you're speaking about, and I'm going to use this term, black leaders of the ANC. Are you also taking...
No, I never used the term black.
But I'm saying I'm using it. I'm saying it. I'm saying it's black leaders, right, of the ANC, and I'm using that deliberately for this next question. What position are you taking to what has been posted by, for example, someone like Renaldo Gous, who was with the Democratic Alliance, and things that were seen to also be racist at the time? Is that, for you, a concern?
Well, the fact is we're against all forms of racism, and that legal process is still ongoing. But we will not be diverted through these kind of arguments. What we've seen is much worse. Julius Malema saying, kill the Boer. He calls for us to be killed. And the president is dead silent on that. The fact is, the only reason how we're going to save AGOA, the only way we're going to save AGOA and going to save our country from sanctions is if we address the real issues. We've been asking here in the US for South Africa not to be kicked out of AGOA. They say, well, they cannot keep us in AGOA because of disrespect for property rights, because of disrespect for human rights.
Who's saying that? Pardon me, who's saying that in the US?
Members of Congress that we have spoken to, as well as in the State Department and also in the White House. The message remains the same. So if we want to save the country, what we want to do, of course, we make those arguments, don't punish the ordinary people, keep us in AGOA. If you're going to act against anybody, rather act against ANC leaders.
So the president has said, right, the president has said in public that what you're doing is creating division, certainly not building the nation, running around, you know, to the world when you have your grievances. And he's calling on yourselves to solve the problems here in the country so that you are able to deal with the problems. And one would ask, is that something that you are considering at all? Because the president is saying, solve the problems here at home.
Well, the president must also tell you that we wrote to him numerous letters. Also, just before we departed to the US, we wrote another letter to him asking for discussions. He simply ignored us. So now to come and tell us, well, why don't you come and discuss? We wanted to discuss, and he ignored us.
But what proof do you have that he ignored you, or he was simply going to still get to your letter? And I ask this, right? I'm not speaking on his behalf. It's a question to say that, for example, you write to him. Let's say you write to him, then the letter still needs to get to the president, and then the president writes to you and says, okay, let's then sit at the table and have this meeting. So did you give him a time frame within which to respond, or how did you view this being ignored?
Most definitely. Well, we wrote our first letter to him in April last year already, and that's been a long time. I hope his processes is not that slow. He simply ignored that letter. We again wrote to him with regard to the Bella Act. At least in that case, he mandated the team to negotiate with us. But of course, then afterwards just said, no, he has no knowledge of this. The team at NEDLAC did not have his mandate. So we've tried, we have a clean conscience. But and of course, the president's spokesperson, before we left, he said, the president will not speak to AfriForum and Solidarity. So what more proof do we need than the official spokesperson of the president saying that? So our conscience is clean. We try to discuss locally. But if the president had a change of heart and he now wants to solve these issues locally, we are more than willing. We will be looking forward to enter into these discussions.
So should you lose
AGOA?
Pardon me, should you lose AGOA? I know you say you've met with members of Congress and they're raising their concerns, and you're saying that punish a number of people, certainly not punish the entire country, but they can still do their own thing and not listen to what you say. So if your calls not to punish the entire country fall on deaf ears, and they simply take AGOA away from South Africa and then not punish these individuals that you're talking about, what are you going to do?
Well, we will hold the South African government, the president, and ANC leaders accountable. Also, former Minister Naledi Pandor, because they are the kind of people that have now gambled with the future of our country and its people. So then, of course, we will have to negotiate with regard to what other alternatives there are. But this issue needs to be solved. It's not
But
going to be solved by
would you also
making
take
accusations of high treason.
But would you take responsibility?
No, I did not sign the Expropriation Act. I did not sign the Bella Act. I did not sign with Hamas and Iran. It's the president and his government that did so. How can I take responsibility for their irresponsible behaviors? I can at least
responsibility for
I tried to stop it.
I ask this, right? Because you've now gone to the US and you've said all that
Yes.
you've said. You've spoken to the number of people that you've said, and you've spoken to and you've sat across the tables, you've pleaded with them. Then your pleas do not land well with them, let's say. And then they decide that they're now going to make this move. Because if you look at the Expropriation Act, for example, it speaks about the courts, being an opportunity for anyone to go there. Yes, it's vague. There's been a lot that's being said. The Democratic Alliance is taking it to court now, which is why I was asking you that if there's a reason why you then trust the courts, could you not have gone there, challenged it there first? But now you've gone to the US, you've said all that you've said, and then they take a go away from you as you're pleading to them not to do. If that happens, will you also take responsibility? Park the people you're talking about. I hear you, and I understand from your vantage point what you're saying. But what responsibility are you also taking as well for that?
Absolutely no responsibility, because we are here to try and save AGOA. We are here to try and convince them not to kick us out of AGOA. So we will have a clean conscience. Just with regard to what you said regarding the Expropriation Act, Section 19.8 says quite clearly you can only go to court after expropriation has happened. And we know if there's a disputed court case, it will take you 5 years. So people will simply say, I don't have the resources to fight for 5 years. I've lost my income with the land that I've lost. And then they'll just take an offer of 20 or 30% or whatever it may be. That is a clear infringement on property rights, and it's of no use if expropriation can go ahead and you can only go to court later and you have to use your own resources.
All right, Kali, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Let's see then what happens and what comes out of your negotiations.
Yes.
If you are going to get your way, and as you say, if the president, when you come back, is willing to speak, let's see what happens, as you say as well. But we'll also, do give a right of reply here and see what happens. But thank you for your time. That was Kali Kriel, AfriForum CEO.
I was informed by the media that the Hawks are investigating complaints of high treason against AfriForum. I will not be having any sleepless nights over this, as these complaints are baseless. If the state, however, goes ahead with this, it will make us stronger. It would confirm the point that there are ANC leaders that are abusing their power to govern against certain sections of the population. It's also ludicrous because we have many ANC leaders implicated of corruption at the Zondo Commission, and the Hawks are not acting against them. Then secondly, if AfriForum has to be in court, it would of course also give us a platform to show the world and to show the country how the ANC leaders are acting against the interest of the country. They are disloyal. AfriForum, Solidarity and the Solidarity Movement are loyal because we are fighting for in the interest of the South African people.
And to belong to a political party or not.
So the Hawks have confirmed that 4 dockets of high treason have been opened following accusations of misleading information in the United States on South Africa's Expropriation Act. So there's been 4 different political parties that have opened police dockets. to pursue AfriForum for what they call high treason. They say that AfriForum and Solidariteit have been spreading misinformation, misleading information that is damaging to South Africa's sovereignty.
So there are 4 dockets that have been opened by different people, maybe from different political parties.
The complaints were filed by Black Forum, South Africa, Mkhonto weSizwe Party, the African National Congress Youth League, as well as the Economic Freedom Fighters. What do you think about this? Do you think AfriForum should be charged with treason or not? Let me know in the comments down below.
What do you mean, Uguti, they throw the rock and hide their hand?
Because they're sending AfriForum and Solidarity to do all those things. I mean, they've got very few stamps in their passports. They don't have pictures of traveling. About the United States. Keep his manje. Leya uJaco Klein hayizo le lanku uyibonila leya yabona ukuthi ibhunu nje elizihluphekelayo balifaka isipanini uyabona ukuthi lo yakathusi abathusi in fact bonke uyabona ukuthi laba
locally grill kakhulu it's not the sharpest tool in the toolbox.
You can hear all he can do is stick to his script. You know what I mean? Clement asked him so many questions in so many different ways, and he didn't understand that what he's doing is that he's just giving evidence. I'm committing high treason. I'm committing high treason. I'm too stupid to realize that what I'm saying to the SABC News when I'm talking to them is that I'm committing high treason. He's too dumb to understand that. Like, the evidence is overwhelming, you know, and they're just recording it all the way. The case is going to be an open shut case. You know what I mean?